Good afternoon, Savannah. I hope you are all safe, comfortable, and healthy during this extraordinary time. This lecture is very close to the one I would have given live to the audience at the Kennedy Pharmacy or another similar location in Savannah. I'm pitching it to the Savannah Voice Festival Davenport House audience that has been coming to the other lectures, such as the spectacular one given by Rob Gitson earlier this year. The very thought of giving a lecture on the same series as Rob has me quaking in my boots. We've had some technical challenges playing videos on Facebook Live, so in order to do my PowerPointy kind of presentation, what you are about to see is a recording. Here goes. Tradition, innovation, preservation. The Davenport House as metaphor for the music of our day. A decidedly personal view from Michael Ching, composer in residence at Savannah Voice Festival. Since the time in the 1950s when Anna Hunter and her 6 friends helped save the Davenport House from becoming a parking lot, Savannah has been a laboratory for historic preservation. It's been a question of what to preserve, how to display it, and of course, how to pay for it and maintain it. In recent years, the realization has been that we need to do more than just preserve the grand reception rooms and bedrooms of the first and second floors, but also to preserve the attics, basements, kitchens, outbuildings, and middens that help paint a more complete picture of what life has been like, not only for the masters, but the servants and slaves. In the opera field, how do we decide what gets restored and preserved and what gets bulldozed by history into the equivalent of the parking lot? As a living composer, I'm constantly asking myself that question. Why? Because, of course, I'd rather be amongst those that are preserved and performed for 20, 50, and indeed 100 years after I am gone. The sorting bin of history is particularly difficult in opera. Part of the problem is that our sense of morality, of what is entertaining and delightful versus what is annoying or even cruel, they change, and change quickly. The classics aren't immune from this process of continual sorting and resorting. Mozart's Così fan tutte and Don Giovanni are undergoing that kind of scrutiny right now. Is it okay to hum along to the story of a serial rapist as long as he gets his comeuppance at the end? Given the amount of that sort of plotline in police shows, the answer is probably yes. As for Così fan tutte, is an opera where women are duped by men for 3 hours really all that entertaining anymore? There are those of us who think Così should be put on the shelf for a few years to be referred to occasionally like Mozart's Idomeneo or Mitridate. So the question is it right or is it entertaining in the context of how we feel now? I'd say the latter question is the key one. Another part of the sorting bin of opera history is very political. It's a game that includes producers, musicologists, critics, awards and grants committees, the folks who place value judgments on our work. Although I admit to being part of this group as a former general director and current arts panelist, I hate it. Going back to Savannah and historic preservation, the Davenport House was sorted and saved because it is an example of a series of remarkable best practices in the 1830s. It is beautifully and solidly crafted. It exemplifies the federal style. The builder, Isaiah Davenport, is a kind of American hero we like, self-made, or in this case, self-taught. It doesn't have too much dark baggage to go with it, although I suppose in Savannah that would just be fodder for a ghost story. At the same time, I think there is something livable about the house. I think one of the reasons the house is so appealing that we can imagine ourselves living in it. It's an ample house, but not ostentatious, and location, location, location. Historic preservation itself is a kind of dialogue with the past. The Davenport House Museum, through its curators, docents, and visitors, interprets the house. One tour will emphasize the ticking in the mattress. Another will set the scene for us in the main ballroom of the house. Another will tell us about the origins of the furnishings in the house. The emphasis will vary from one tour to another. This process of choosing what to emphasize from the past is essential to the way we write music. Verdi was adapting structures that he learned and inherited from early bel canto. He bends them to his vision or discards them. Carlisle Floyd was adapting Appalachian ballads in Savannah. Indeed, the Florentine Camerata was interpreting Greek tragedy in the creation of opera. So, the new is an interpretation of the old, or a dialogue with it. New work gets strength and interest and continuity from these interpretations. Every composer makes different choices for what they interpret, or to put it another way, every composer makes different choices for what influences them. These influences can be subtle or they can be open, homages of sorts. The choice of influences can be subconscious or they can be very overt, an open embrace. For me, my whole musical life has been a dialogue, or more like a game of tug-of-war, between classical and popular music. I took lessons in high school to learn how to play jazz chords. I spent several years while I was artistic director of Opera Memphis, going over to Nashville to study and meet with songwriters there. Lately, I've listened to a lot more John Prine than Puccini. The composers that fascinate me, though, Verdi, Puccini, Gershwin, just to name a few, were not afraid to write a tune more pleasing to the common instead of the critic. The accomplishment I most want to replicate as a writer is to create something that achieves both classical and popular acclaim, rather like Gershwin's Summertime from Porgy. How can you beat that? I mean, Porgy is an opera with a fugue and a tune. More about fugues later. When I was young, the first living composer I became fascinated with was Dave Brubeck, and I think he has a similar pull between popular and classical, or jazz and classical. I can recall sitting in my pajamas in the stairwell of our house in New Orleans, listening to my father play this transcription of Strange Meadowlark downstairs on the piano in the dining room. Lately, the creators who fascinate me most are those who combine tradition with innovation. They're like the Davenport House folks, engaged in interpreting the past and making it come alive. Here's one. He was a Canadian-Scottish composer and piper named Martin Bennett. In his brief 33-year life, he did a remarkable job of interpreting the old for our day. Here he is as a young man. Bennett went to conservatory, but also combined his piping with music in dance clubs. Bennett revered the traditions of piping and ballad singing. Here's a bit of a song from an old ballad singer, Lizzie Higgins.
What a voice, what a voice, what a voice I hear. It's like the voice of my woe. thy doings, like that swallow high. I will clasp in the arms of my belly boy.
And here is Martin Bennett's remarkable orchestral take on it. As I mentioned earlier, Bennett died very young, and we can only imagine what kind of synergies he would have been able to accomplish had he been granted more time on the planet. And now, Savannah Voice Festival and Davenport House friends, we now run up against what can and can't actually be done online. You see, I cannot, due to copyright restrictions, play the music for the next two examples in this online format, something that would have been easily done in a live lecture. My next example is a young Spanish artist named Rosalia. You may not have heard of her because she hasn't done a lot in English yet. In 2018, she put out a song and video called Malamente. In it, and in some of her other songs, she uses Spanish folk and cultural imagery and references. Although I can't play you the song because of those copyright restrictions, here are some pictures from the video which include bullfighting, the flamenco style of clapping, palmas, religious iconography, and even the Spanish capirote, which has a completely different point of reference here in the US. I'm sure those of you more familiar than me with Spanish culture will get dozens more references. I suggest you look her up sometime, as you will find this video to be refreshing and a way of taking something historical and interpreting it for our day. There is, of course, innovation in our country, too. Most of you, my Davenport House and Savannah Voice Festival friends, have probably heard of this video, but perhaps not actually seen it. The 2018 song and video Old Town Road was a cultural moment for our country and for the artist, Lil Nas X, and the co-star, Billy Ray Cyrus. Yes, that Billy Ray Cyrus. The song literally combines country and rap themes. I was so looking forward to playing this song live to see the looks on your faces for those of you who hadn't seen it. Those looks are similar to the looks on the faces at the beginning of the video, who seem stunned to see a black cowboy in their urban neighborhood. After beating a car in a race with his horse, the cowboy teams up with the country singer, and the two proceed to play at a party, complete with country line dancing. So here we have two genres that are normally separated by moats and high walls, rap and country. But it's also Lil Nas saying overtly, "What are you staring at? I have a right and cultural background that includes riding horses and being a cowboy." Some folks at first are like, WTF, but eventually it's like, as long as I can dance to it, I'm fine with it. To me, this song makes America great again. Since Gershwin, we have had a trickle of artists who are interested in combining high and low, opera and pop. They include Rufus Wainwright and Stuart Copeland. I was personally involved in a couple of opera projects in Memphis and Nashville with songwriters Mike Reed and Marcus Hummin. Coming up, we are looking forward to Rhiannon Giddens' new opera at Spoleto. She was in the Carolina Chocolate Drops and a recently awarded MacArthur Fellow. Which finally brings us back to me and the Davenport House. As I hope I've made clear, what these other creators have been doing is combining high with low and old with new. Here's a final example from Verdi, our venerable 19th century Italian master. It's his final fugue from Falstaff, Tutto il mondo è burla.
Tutto nel mondo è burla l'uomo. Il nato burloni, burloni, burloni. Tutto nel mondo è burla l'uomo. Il nato burloni, burloni, burloni. Tutto nel mondo è burla l'uomo è nato. Il nato burloni, burloni, burloni. Come nato. Il nato burloni, burloni, burloni. Nel suo cervello. Sul tutti gabbati, tutti gabbati.
Say, final fugue from Falstaff 5 times fast. Wow. And here we have the final fugue from my opera, Anna Hunter, which premiered at the Davenport House only a few years ago and is about Anna's effort to save the house from the wrecking ball. It's a little less ambitious than Verdi's fugue. After all, it's for a 45-minute opera, not a 3-hour one. So we'll close this wide-ranging presentation with a little Anna Hunter.
Sometimes you need a little knock on the head to move forward. Sometimes you need a little knock on the head to move forward. Sometimes you need a little knock on the head to move forward. Sometimes you need a knock on the head to move forward. Sometimes you need a knock on the head to move forward. Sometimes all you need is a little knock
Hello, thank you for tuning in. I know I ran a little bit long, but I couldn't bear to cut the Verdi fugue. Now, normally with Virtually Live, we are going to end each session with a question and answer. But since we are doing this pre-taped in my case, the staff has sent me a series of questions that I might be able to answer. And I decided in the interest of time, I'm going to pick just one. So here goes. What period of opera has been most influential on your writing? What period of opera has been the most influential for me? Well, I would say it's the period that begins with Gluck's Orpheus and Eurydice and ends with Bizet's Carmen. It's the period of time where people were writing numbers operas with distinct arias, duets, trios, big finales. I think it's a very great way to organize an opera in a way that the audience can easily comprehend. Through composed opera is a great thing. I do use it sometimes, but in the wrong hands it can be honestly a little bit dull. And so, thank you very much for staying with this, and I need to thank the Georgia Humanities Council and the Davenport House for supporting the lecture series. We'll see you down the road, Savannah. Bye-bye.